Have you ever had that feeling where you're just drowning in information, but at the same time, you're starving for actual wisdom? AI is promising to generate infinite knowledge on demand, but it's also creating this profound new challenge. In a world where answers are cheap and everywhere, who or what do we actually trust? Let's dive in and explore what this crisis of authority really means for all of us.
Okay, so let's start with the feeling I bet you've had recently just scrolling online. You see an image or maybe a piece of text and it looks super polished, almost too perfect, but something about it just feels empty, right? Hollow.
This first started bubbling up on creative platforms. Think places like Pinterest. All of a sudden, your feed was just flooded with these aesthetically perfect images that were also strangely soulless and interchangeable. It was like this tidal wave of content that was all style and absolutely no substance. And this phenomenon got so common, so pervasive, that it actually earned a name: slop. It's the perfect word, isn't it? It just captures that feeling of wading through a digital landfill of low effort, totally meaningless AI-generated content. Now, it's really easy to just wave this off as, a social media problem, a bit of annoying noise online. But here's the thing. This slop has quietly seeped into a place you'd probably least expected: the world of academic and scholarly research. So here's the real headache for editors and reviewers. The AI-assisted papers coming in, they're not necessarily bad. In fact, a lot of them are quite competent. The problem is, they're all kind of the same. They're repetitive, they're undifferentiated, and that makes it incredibly difficult to spot the truly original, human-driven work in the pile. And this, right here, this brings us to the core question we're tackling. If a machine can churn out a perfectly competent analysis, what makes a human one any more valuable? How in the world do we find this signal in all of this AI-generated noise? To even begin to answer that, we have to completely rethink how we value insight itself. See, the problem isn't really about good ideas versus bad ideas anymore. It's about what happens when any idea is no longer scarce. For centuries, the equation was pretty simple. Research was slow, it was painstaking. Coming up with a truly new idea was a monumental effort. And because genuine insight was so rare, just having one, that was enough to command attention and build authority. Well, AI is just shattering that entire model. So you might be thinking, okay, is the solution just to get better at filtering out the junk? Is this just a quality control problem at the end of the day? Surprisingly, no. The problem goes much, much deeper than that. And this is the part that might break your brain a little bit. The real problem isn't that the AI is bad, it's that it's good enough. When you can generate 10, 100, 1,000 competent analyses with a single click, insight itself stops being special. It becomes a commodity, like water from a tap. And this is the fundamental shift. When answers are everywhere, the truly rare and valuable human skill is no longer producing them, it's interpreting them. It's about having the judgment to decide what matters, what it all means, and, just as important, what we should ignore. So this brings us to a really critical distinction we need to make. It's the difference between insight, which, yes, AI can now produce at a massive scale, and authority, which, as we're about to see, is something uniquely, powerfully human. Just think about it for a second. Insight? You can generate it on demand. But authority? That has to be accumulated, slowly, over time. Insight is interchangeable and anonymous. A fact is a fact. But authority is embodied. It's attached to a specific person's judgment and voice. Insight can explain something, but real authority helps us make sense of it all. It gives us a compass. So what do we mean by authority in this new world? Well, it's not about your job title or your rank in a hierarchy. Not at all. It's about becoming a trusted source of judgment for a community. It happens when people learn, over time, that your way of seeing the world actually helps them navigate all this complexity. An authority doesn't just throw data at you. They synthesize information from all over the place. They contextualize it, putting it into real-world constraints. They simplify complex things without dumbing them down. They orient a community. And crucially, unlike an anonymous AI, they stand behind their interpretations. They're accountable. Okay, so understanding this distinction between insight and authority, it presents us with a really clear choice about the future of work, especially knowledge work. and how we can strategically position ourselves not just to survive, but to thrive. Let's just be really blunt here. Trying to outproduce an AI on speed or scale is a race you will lose, period. You can't write more, you can't analyze faster, you can't read more papers. It's a losing game. The winning strategy is to compete on the things machines can't replicate: judgment, trust, and the creation of meaning. So this is what we're calling the great human shift. As AI automates all that technical labor, the summarizing, the lit reviews, the analysis, our job evolves. We move from being producers of information to being interpreters of it. Our value is no longer in finding the what, but in explaining the so what. And I really want to emphasize this point. This isn't some far-off prediction of the future. It is a choice we have to make right now. We can either join the race to produce more and more slop, or we can choose to step up and take responsibility for creating meaning. Because ultimately, as insight becomes a cheap, abundant commodity, the most valuable human contribution is going to be the one thing an algorithm can never truly generate. It's not knowledge, it's trust. So the real question for all of us is, how are you going to choose to build it?